Hello and welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Monica.
And I'm Andrea. And welcome to episode 3 of Star Trek Discovery Season 2. So there's so much to discuss, so let's go ahead and get into it. Monica, what is your initial reaction of this episode?
So I'm really excited and I watched this episode a few times. My first reactions were like, yay, my favorite character is back. And I especially like her one-liner, which we're going to dive into in a bit. The freaks are more fun. Like I thought she's lively and like, it's just nice to see her. But then I rewatched it a few times and then I started to growl at the screen. And I'm frustrated at the writers because now I'm noticing more details that we'll talk about in a bit. But now I'm starting to think that the episode is more of a cross between Jerry Springer and a soap opera for me, which I don't like. I don't like all this drama and baby mamas and baby daddies in Star Trek. And so I'm disappointed with the writers. So I'm downgrading this to 2 snaps.
Okay.
What about you? I know that was long-winded.
No, you're fine. My initial thought is that I actually like this episode, not because the episode was good, but because what the episode is going to bring us. I feel like the first 2 episodes of this season were a little slow, and I was just like, okay. I mean, I love Pike. I love the energy that he was bringing, but like, I wasn't connecting to any of the stories. Like, it just wasn't working for me. So this episode really lets us know that, okay, we're finally going to get set up to some action. It's not about, this episode wasn't completely wrapped around Michael, which was like good for me. Cause I'm gonna admit, I'm a little tired of her. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I'm a little like dragged out by her storyline. Like, it's getting a little annoying. So my initial reaction is I actually like this episode because it was focused on other people. More like the episode was really focused on more on everyone else, and Michael had a storyline, but it wasn't the main storyline. So I'm happy with this episode. Hopefully, I don't eat my words later.
Yeah, there's definitely many other characters that's bringing a lot of drama to the story as well. So.
Yes, so let's go ahead and get into that conversation. So one of the main people in this episode is Tilley, and we all love her. And if you don't, let's have a conversation after this. Outback, me and you, just want to know. But we know that Tilley has been going through something where she feels like she's seeing the ghost of her dead old schoolmate, and it's coming to a head in this episode, and she is seeing her while she's running. She's seeing her while she's on the bridge, and we see that May is yelling at her, and then we can see that it's taken Tilley apart because she doesn't know what's wrong with her. So before I explain everything that happened with Tilley, what did you think will happen to Tilley?
So I'm excited for Tilley, as I think she's like in a Henson right now. She's in training for the command program. Mm-hmm. And it's exciting to see how someone funnels up to a leadership role, how to get to the bridge. And obviously the crew of Discovery trusts her a ton to be able she's been in charge of like this, like all these investigations, and she's helped save the day for many of these journeys that they've been on. So It's nice to see her. And in the opening scene, she's running as part of a marathon. And that's a scene that I remember from a previous episode in which Michael was helping her train and helping her boost her confidence to that she was going to be able to like meet all the requirements to become captain one day.
Yes.
And so it's nice to see her, like her self-esteem boost up, and she's eager to do this, but yet there's something interfering with her, and she thinks it's a ghost of May, and she doesn't know why. And so that's intriguing to me about whether it was like a subconscious thing that was going on in her head, like if she was like beating herself down, because sometimes we do that as humans. Like we we're more critical of ourselves, or if this was like some other outer body experience. See that, and also see Saru kind of cheer her on, and Michael cheer her on. Michael was there when she finished the race and Tilley won.
Yeah.
What do you think about that scene?
So to elaborate more on the point that you said, that like as humans we sometimes, like, you know, to me it felt like it was almost not really like a psychotic break that she was thinking it could have been, but more of she was like almost sabotaging herself. Like she was finally getting everything that she thought, everything that she wanted, and the fact that she was almost there, and now she starts seeing the ghost of her dead friend. Like, what is this? What is going on? And so as the episode progressed, we see that May is yelling at Tilley when Pike comes to the deck. We see that May is looking for someone particular, and it's not Pike, and it's not the captain. And so Pike, being an amazing person that he is, he pairs himself off with Tilley when they're at the bridge doing like their shadow exercises. Then he offers Tilley the chair, which is the last time she sat in the chairs when she had to fake like she was Killy. So she's like, I'm sitting in the captain's chair. I'm paired with Captain Pike, who's just a supportive person, and she's losing it, which is like, is this really like, that's what made me think, like, is she's like self-sabotaging herself? Like, is that what was going on? Because like she was finally getting to the point that she didn't really, like, she wanted the goal, but didn't know if she was worthy of the goal. Right. And then May is just yelling at her and yelling at her and yelling at her, saying, that's not him. He's shorter. He's more pale. He has blonde hair. And it didn't click to me at first who she was talking about until like the person came on screen. I was like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. That's exactly who she was talking about. But she is on the bridge and she like yells at her, like yells at May, but comes off that she's yelling at Pike. And she does what at first I thought that was May was trying to get her to do, resign from the captain training, because it seemed like May was on her side, but not really. Tilley's not normal. Saru was like the first of his kind to get to where he is. And he's like, he sort of feels like a kinship with, I sort of see he feels like a little kinship with Tilley, because he's like, hey, she's not the normal person either. And like, she's like throwing all of this hard work away. And it's just, my heart went out to her during that, because I couldn't believe what May was putting her through.
Right. And you could see the rest of the crew look at her like, oh, this is your time. This is what you always wanted.
What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? So then, like, you know, she goes back to the room and she talks to Michael, and then Tilley has like a breakdown, because she, like, my heart literally, I was watching this with like my heart on my sleeve for Tilley, because she was like, she's breaking me down, and I don't know how, like, she's like, I don't know how much more I can take. I'm gonna lose. Like, she can feel that she's not strong enough to fight May's influence over her. Right. And she starts crying. And May is like, what are you doing? And she has to explain that she's crying because she's sad. And then when she leaves, Michael's like, what teenage girl doesn't know what crying is?
Right.
That's not normal.
Right. But I think also Tilley was afraid to share any of this, because what she's going through is not based on science. It's not anything that she could, I think, rationalize. This was hard to describe to the rest of the crew, including her roommate Michael, right? So it wasn't until she was at this all-time low, and she was like, oh my goodness gracious, and she was describing this. So I could see how she did not share this information earlier. I know Saru was kind of disappointed, like, why didn't you share this? And it's because, how do you share the fact that you're seeing someone else that's passed away? That's hard to describe.
And this crew is also reeling off of multiple betrayals.
Right.
And Ash comes into mind, because the last time there was someone on the ship who was like seeing or not completely there mentally, he was basically like a double agent unbeknown to himself. And so right. I can also see that's why another reason why she doesn't go to sick bay, that she's avoiding it, is because, you know, she doesn't want them to think she has something else going on in her head. But Michael is the one who basically lets her know that this isn't a medical problem. This is a scientific problem. You need to go to the engineering. You need to go to the spore drive. You need to see Paul. and that's what I felt like I was so stupid, because Paul is the shorter, paler, blonde person that May was trying to come into contact with. And Paul is able to realize, Paul and Tilley, because they are in a dynamic duo, and I love them when they like feed off of each other. They're able to realize that it's a spore from the mirror dimension landed on Tilley. And that reminded me, it did happen. We did see that happen when they left the mirror universe. Right. And it's like a fungus, like literally growing inside of her body, that he has to like pull out using the dark matter. And May is pissed. May doesn't want this to happen. And I will say, I was a little disgusted by the scene when they pulled May out of Tilley. When they pulled the fungus. I won't call him May anymore. When they pulled the fungus out of Tilley. Because I was just thinking it would be something like, you know, just sucked up into the vacuum. But no, like it's a actual blob that was like inside of her body. Right. I was like, oh God, nope, we're done. We're done. Fungus, no thank you. Bye-bye. What did you think of, like,
so we thought it was like a parasite. I think at first we thought it was like a ghost and a figment of her imagination. Then we find out it's a parasite. Mm-hmm. But it reminded me of like some other scenes of other movies in which they're like, it's an outer body experience and they're trying to pull this out of it. It's weird how it came out of her chest in another row, but
it's like a full blob.
Right. And they captured it in the same contraction that she captured the black meteor, the piece of black meteor. Yeah. So it's how ironic. But then also we realize this is like Tyrion May. Yeah. Right. Because that's how she was able to connect with Paul through that spore core, I don't know, plexiglass area. And so he's like the captain of that. Yeah, he was steering the ship and deciding where they're going to go during those travels. But that's why this May was really mean and awful, and maybe didn't understand tears because it's Tyrion May.
Well, so I was thinking. So my understanding was it wasn't May at all. It was just someone who took the form of someone from her memories, that it was literally just a fungus. That's why it didn't understand human emotions, because it wasn't human. So I understood it as it was literally like a fungus. It wasn't something that was human, but it just took the like form of someone from her memory.
They were mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that's why, because like even a mirror, the Terran universe person would understand what tears were, and this one didn't understand what tears were. So it's like, still gross though. Still seeing that black little fungus blob. I took a shower after that episode. I was like, okay, this is gross. But that was Tilley's storyline in this episode. And so then we have another storyline that's sort of important. We see Michael connecting with her mother, Amanda, again. And they have some really intense conversations when they come, because the Discovery is hailed by the ship, and like they don't have to basically tell the Discovery anything just because of how high important the ship is. And Michael's the one who recognizes it as her stepfather's, or her adoptive father's ship, and it's a wreck ship. And they're like, okay, we'll beam him over. And it's her mother who comes and hugs her and says, don't react, but Spock needs our help. And I was like, oh gosh, now we got a mystery going on. What's going on now? What is happening? And there's a lot that sort of happens with Amanda coming onto the ship. And we see, well, first of all, what did you think of Amanda coming in and hugging Michael's like, don't react, but your brother needs help? Like, what did you think of that scene?
That scene was a little weird to me, but I can also, thinking about it further, understand that with Vulcan culture, I think they don't show emotion so much. Mm-hmm. So she was just in she lives the majority of her life now in Vulcan culture. And so it seems like she was training Michael, like, I'm getting ready to tell you something's big, and embrace her, because she knows that Michael is human. So Michael does react. And we also know that Michael can go rogue at any time. So maybe it's also like calming Michael down. Like,
Mhm.
I can imagine your mother coming over to you like, I have some bad news. Don't overreact.
Take
We'll
a
get
breath,
through this
sit
together.
down.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That kind of thing. But Amanda, I really like Amanda. And she has some guts in her because she also stole the medical files.
Yes. Of Spock. And she was like, I need to know what's going on with my son.
Right.
And I feel like this ship is like the best ship for it because Pike there really cares about Spock. He cares about who he is. He wants to make sure that he's okay. Michael is Spock's sister, and Amanda's the mom. And like it leaves sort of Sarek. I like how she did it because unless Sarek doesn't know, it gives him the plausible deniability. And I like that like he's not involved in this because it gives him plausible deniability. Like I didn't know what they were doing. If whatever they're planning doesn't work, he can still be used at the end to help like protect his son. So I'm like, I like the whole compartmentalizing of the crew of who knows what.
Right.
But then we find that Spock actually is on the run because Pike tries to get a hold of Spock of the psych ward that he is at, and Spock isn't there anymore. And he killed 3 people escaping. And we find out that Spock knew about the Red Angel, that apparently at one point when Michael tried to run away after the science academy where she was working was blown up, we remember the scene of Sarek sort of saying, my mind to your mind, like right. Bringing her back. She ran away to protect everyone. And it was Spock who found her, but Spock always said the Red Angel was the one. So now we see that this Red Angel has been around for years in Michael and Spock's life. But then Amanda says something that breaks my heart because I will admit I love me some Spock. Like Spock was probably my favorite character for like a very long time. But we learn that Amanda basically shut off her own emotions when it came to her son because he was raised Vulcan and she wanted him to be raised and accepted in Vulcan culture. So she pulled back all of her emotional love and support when it came to him. And then she admits to Michael that when Michael came, she was able to push all of that love and emotion that she couldn't show her son into Michael, creating like a rift between her and Spock. And that broke my heart. That broke my heart. I was like, how could you do my boy that way? Like I understood why, but how could you treat him this way? Right. Openly show affection to someone else when you can't do it to your own child because he was being raised Vulcan. And it's just, it made my heart go out to Spock even more, like what he faced growing up.
Right. I mean, he's caught between like 2 cultures, right? Mm-hmm. So the human culture with empathy and understanding feelings and completely logical feeling. And we know that Sarek from previous episodes was really a strict dad. He also chose Spock for the Vulcan Science Academy instead of Michael, right?
Yeah.
So he's leaning more. We know that Sarek leaning more towards his favorite son, his child, like to Spock than Michael. And maybe Amanda was like, then I need to help Michael because also I have common traits with Michael. And I see some of these types of dynamics impacting families here on Earth that, celebrate that are part of 2 different religions and other cultural aspects. And like, oh, do we put up a Christmas tree? Do we not? Like, so there's dynamics there. And it's interesting though that she chose one. And I've heard of this feeling of mother's regret. And it seems like she's exploring that now. Like maybe that was the wrong decision to make. She can't go back in time, of course, to fix it, but she's wondering about that decision and how she raised Michael versus Spock.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the second half of Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast.
So we're getting right back into it, guys. So also, while Michael and Amanda are talking, we hear that Amanda basically asks, what's going on? Why can't we get you guys together for holidays? Why is it all 4 of us can never be together ever? And Michael admits that she is the reason why her and Spock don't talk. Because after that attack at the Science Center where she went to school when she was a little human Vulcan, there was an attack, and the attack was because of her, and she realized it was because of her. It was because that she was human living in a Vulcan world, and the extremists didn't want that. And she said that Spock was like her shadow. So I guess at some point between meeting him and then that attack, they got close, but we don't see that part on screen while they're like young. And then she decides, I need to run away because I have to protect them because I don't want them to die because of me. And she doesn't want Spock to become a target because of her. So she ends up saying something. We don't know what she said because Amanda asks her point blank, what did you say? And Michael's quiet. And Amanda's like, well, the fact that you didn't tell me is because it means it's extreme. And so like we get that Michael, I feel at that point, Michael blended Vulcan and Earth and human tactics of I'm trying to protect you, and in protecting you, I'm going to hurt you. And she's like, logically, it makes the most sense for you not to be around me. So I'm going to hurt you emotionally, which is a human thing, instead of like using logic to explain to him, hey, I need you not to be around me anymore because I don't want you to have a target on your back. So it's like, she blended the two cultures together, but blended the worst parts of each culture together in order to protect her brother. And even now, as they're adults, he refuses to talk to her. So that makes me really think this is not just like a spat between siblings. Because I know when me and my brothers get upset, we may go like a couple days without talking. Like we'll have full-on screaming matches and then like apologize the next day or like let it go, you know, because that's what you do. But I'm like, what did she say? I really want to know what she said to that broke my boy.
I'm sure we'll find out.
But we also see a different side of Amanda. We see a side of her that's like, I will go hard for my child.
Right.
And I know you have something you wanted to mention about that.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that for two things, that Michael did not go rogue like Michael typically does when she finds out, oh, there's a problem. She could have taken the medical records and searched and scanned it. She didn't have to give it to Captain Pike, and talk it out.
Yeah.
Or but try to do the diplomatic she did way. That. And she's been learning over the course of all of these, all of this mess, about how to approach problems. So I'm glad that she did not do that. But with that, I think Amanda was able to recognize, oh, Michael is not helping me as much as I wanted her to, because Michael wasn't just willing to break all the rules to find out about, to dig into the files and help with finding out what's going on with Spock. Amanda stormed out of their discussion. It was like, I'll handle this by myself, and whipped her neck around. It was out of the door like a back to my ship. And I'm going to save my son. I'm going to, by whatever means possible, I'm going to make this happen. She took the disc with her, but Michael didn't run after her. And Michael did not, we didn't see any contact later on with Michael following up. The only, I think, follow-up emotion I saw was Michael laying down on the bed with tears. But it shows that Michael's drawing a line, but Amanda is willing to fight for Spock. And it's also interesting that Sarek is not there to fight for Spock.
But we don't see. So the thing is, we don't know if they're doing a plausible deniability. I'm hoping they're doing a plausible deniability. Right. As in they're both working independently of each other. Like he's working the channels that he can work, and she's trying to work the back channels. So that way, no matter what, like if he does things the correct way, he might get answers, or he might not. So she's doing things the incorrect way to hopefully get answers. So I'm hoping, like, I don't know if I'm right. I'm hoping that he's working his connections to figure out what's going on. But that way they both have no knowledge of what the other one's doing. It's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, so you can't like going.
I love your optimism there.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, because Spock is wanted for murder at this point. So this is scary. And tarnishes their whole family, let alone Michael was in prison. Like this
whole family got some issues. So But they also said Spock may, if he was in a he was in a psych ward, that if he was in a what's the word? If he wasn't in his right mind, that he might be able to get away with, well, not really get away with, but not be punished to the full extent if he was already in a psych ward. So we'll see what happens in the coming episodes. Hopefully, I'm waiting to see him. I'm waiting to see Spock. Like, I'm tired of seeing other versions of him. I want the man. So come on, help me out, people. So let's go ahead and move into the next portion of this episode, which is, in my opinion, the best part of this episode, the part that gave us so much information, but at the same time made me wondering, well, what are you guys doing? The Klingons. Because I didn't really know if we were going to get back to them. Like, I didn't really know, or I knew we were, but I didn't know when we would get back to them. And boy, do these Klingons have a whole different look to them, because they are now apparently growing out their hair, because in peacetime, they grow their hair, but in wartime, they shave it. And they all look weird, in my opinion, with hair. And they all look like they have a receding hairline, because none of their hair starts until like the middle of their forehead, middle of their like top of their head.
But also, Ash is growing out his hair. He has a ponytail and a beard.
And Ash is like human who wants to be accepted as a Klingon, but he's not accessing Volk's memories to the point of like wanting to be with L'Rell, but like he wants L'Rell to like treat him like Volk. And she tries to kiss him, and he's like, but when you touch me, it still reminds me of all the torture that you put me through. And it's just a very weird and uncomfortable like scenes to watch, because what are you doing, Ash? And like the Klingons don't like him there, because they're like, they think that he's telling her to basically be the Federation's puppet and to stop using the great houses, and is really not what Ash is doing, is really what L'Rell wants. But because Ash is there, the Klingons aren't happy. He's feeling disrespected, and it's just a very hodgepodge of, this is a cluster F of mess. And
yes. And let's also face it, L'Rell did not work her way up to this position. She leveraged her, and she negotiated with Starfleet so that she could have that the control for the bomb and Quasars and the core Quasars, and she basically like threatened them so that she could have power over all of the Klingon houses. I think that there's still, obviously with this episode, there were people that disagreed with how she worked her way up. And she's a female Klingon in that role. So there's a whole other set of dynamics there as well. This is a whole great big mess.
Yes. And there's even more mess to be added to this whole mess of a thing, because we see that Ash finds out that the actual Volk and the actual L'Rell had a baby together. And L'Rell had the baby taken out of her. Like, I guess they have the technology for the baby to grow outside of the uterus, and that's why the baby is so small. But L'Rell's like, I've never held him, I've never seen him, because she doesn't want to have like another thing of like weakness. And then like Ash is sort of saying, well, we're a family, like I'm the child's father. And it's like, what are you doing, dude? No, you're not. Volk is. And I get that Volk is in your head, and I get that your body was like manipulated, but you were still Ash first.
Yeah.
This baby is not yours. So like, did he merge both consciousness like off screen? Like, did he, like, this episode, I loved every single piece of the drama, but it was mess. And it was such mess.
So I had to rewind and go back about 4 times to hear her rationalize this thing with the baby, because it seems as though she took Volk's sperm. She became pregnant with him even before L'Rell went on to Discovery. Like before she decided that she didn't want to be Klingon anymore, that she wanted to defeat. Like, so she knew that this child was in an incubator tube, growing, let's test tube baby, but she didn't tell Ash then when they were communicating there in Discovery last year. She didn't talk about it then. She didn't share this with Starfleet or anyone else. She also didn't leave with the child. If you really cared for Bulk and you cared for the child, when you escape, then you escape with your unborn. Then you escape,
or at least give your kid to Starfleet and be like, "Hey, please protect our kid, like our child. Like we need him to like grow up safe or whatever. Like this is the proof that I'm on your side because I'm giving my child to you. Like I'm trying, like protect him, please. Like
the child should have been able to claim political asylum too.
Yeah,
especially the child should be in a safe space. I really have issues with this, and this. I'm going to circle back to my Jerry Springer and because I feel like Ash only like conceded to become a family with L'Rell once he found out about the child. Then he was like, "Oh crap! This like the Bulk side of me has a child. I need to help this child." And then L'Rell decided to hold the baby. Not until that moment, until Ash decided, "Oh, let's be a family." Now L'Rell wants to hold the baby.
It's mess, and I will admit I love other people's mess. I don't like mess in my life, but I like other people's mess. So it was enjoyable, weird, what the F is going on mess. But we also see that the Ash is still in contact with Starfleet because he does message Michael, and he does let her know, like, hey, L'Rell doesn't have to support everyone, and there's a insurgency that could happen, and if it does, Starfleet needs to be prepared to go back to war if L'Rell loses control. And it goes to show, it, in my opinion, it shows that he doesn't have complete faith in her and like what they're doing. And he doesn't fully trust them. And he would be a fool to fully trust the Klingons, but like to reach out to Starfleet to let them know, like, hey, this chick's about to lose power. It could signal to other people, if anyone else ever found out, that he really doesn't believe in her or believe that she has the strength and the power to do what she says she does. And in the beginning of like the episode with the Klingons, Ash has to end up wiping off like this paint off of one of the Klingons' face. And then we find that later on in the episode that it was a trap, that he wanted Ash to wipe the paint off of his face because the paint had sensors in it. And even if Ash wiped his hands, it still allowed him to like hear what was going on. And so he found out that L'Rell had a baby and he kidnaps that baby. And now because Ash feels like he's super father of the year for a child that is genetically not his, and the child of the person who tortured him, like still can't get past that. He kidnaps them, and mom and dad go on to war, and they do what stupid people do whenever they made a very emotional decision, and they tried to fight back. Now, I will admit, they were kicking butt. They were kicking butt. They were kicking butt and taking names, and so they were overpowered by Cole Shaw. I'm guessing his name is Cole Shaw. I think that's how you pronounce it. I apologize. I'm not good, but my Klingon is not good. I apologize. And he's about to kill them. And he's like, turn over the chancellorship, L'Rell, to me. And he's literally about to cut Ash's head off. And then they're saved by a mysterious figure. And who guess and who it is? It's your favorite person. Go ahead and tell them who it is. Because I'm still on the fence about her.
Not just Georgiou, but Tyrion Georgiou.
The Emperor. And Ash even says Emperor to her. And she's like, who is that? I'm retired Admiral Philippa Georgiou. A Starfleet a security consultant.
Right.
Who is this emperor that you speak of? Right. Girl, you know who you're talking about.
I don't think of her as emperor anymore because she doesn't reign a throne to me, but she's always the evil Tyrion Georgiou who eats Kelpian. But she comes in and she fights them off and helps save the day and save the baby.
And Laurel and Ash.
Yes. And gives really Laurel an ultimatum.
And a wake-up call.
Yes.
An ultimatum and like almost like a shock to the system. Like, wake up in this world that you're in right now.
Right.
You cannot have it all.
Right. I do not like the wake-up call, and I don't like Laurel's choice. And I just want to explain this for a minute. So I don't like the writers having a woman put another woman in a position of choosing either a leadership role, her job, or family. And so I did not like that. Like, Laurel, either choose your love, Ash, and the baby, or choose to be the leader. One or the other, you can't choose both. And I'm like, oh, there was so many other like feminist like lines in this episode and in this series. Why are you going to end me like that? Like, why are you going to do this to me, writer? It's like, that is so wrong. And Laurel chose the leadership role to reign over all the Klingon houses instead of her love, Bulk Ash. Both of them, the guy that she tortured and the guy that was the love of her life forever, and the guy that she like had the baby with. And I do not like that position. So in the end, Ash then sends the baby off to get adopted by monks. And so now I feel like this is going to be another Michael situation. Like, the baby's raised and does not understand his parents, and was like, oh, Ash, you heard this story from Michael. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? So I would love to hear your insights on that, and maybe you can help soothe my woes and the pain that I'm inflicting on myself over here.
So in any other scenario, I would agree that it is a horrible situation, that ultimatum that Georgiou gave to Laurel. But in this particular situation, it was either one or the other. She was right. You could not have them both because of who Ash is. If Volk was still here, if they had brought Terran Volk back and it was like that Volk that was there, it would have been different. It probably wouldn't have come down to what it came down to. But because Ash is human, and because one of the Klingons were not, because going back to what you said, Laurel didn't earn this position. All the Klingons know that all the Klingons on Kronos know that she did not earn this position. She has it because of the bomb. It is and everyone also knows it is in Starfleet's best interest that Laurel stay Chancellor, that the other Klingons aren't. So this isn't really just about her. It's about the good of basically everyone. And Philippa sort of explains, like, my job is to make sure she stays the Chancellor. If you were in love with another Klingon, probably wouldn't have mattered. If you had a kid by another Klingon, probably wouldn't matter. But the fact that it was Volk, the kid has a different skin color, it's which basically makes it like, the albino version of them. Ash is a human who has a Klingon inside of him, but he's never going to be accepted. Everything that Laurel tries to implement, Klingons think is coming from Ash because they all know that she loves him. It's an instance where you cannot stay in power in this particular world. If she was even on Earth and she was like Laurel was in charge of Starfleet, this probably wouldn't even be a choice. It wouldn't be an issue. But because the Klingons are who they are, because Ash is not one of them, because the child is not considered one of them, she can't have it both. She can't have both ways, because if she had fought her way to the top, they probably would respect her. But everyone knows that they don't. Everyone knows that she has it because Starfleet gave her the bomb that could end Kronos. So she can't have it both ways. We
also know how Klingons mourn the death of their own. And that's what kicked off the Battle of the Binary Stars. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to get past the fact that the writers and director showed us a baby's head that was severed from the body. Like, trying not to that was awful scene. But like,
really?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. But also for her to like kill her child for this position seems to me like a displacement of like anger and frustration. And it seems as though like some of the Klingons would be like, well, shouldn't we have a formal ceremony for their baby, for a Klingon? He is still a Klingon. The baby is still a Klingon.
Yes.
I'm still having problems with that and the whole like,
but again,
killing your own child. I'm glad she did not. She faked the death, everyone, but it was still weird and awkward, and I don't think that that's the way Klingons would work.
She's basically setting it up to say, I killed Ash, one, to make herself look better, because he killed Cole, because he gave Kor gave his life to defend mine. One house defending another. She's like basically making it symbolic to gain all of their support. Like she has to do what she's doing. And let's be honest, everything that she said probably came from Philippa. Everything she said probably came from Philippa. But she's like, look, they don't respect you because you did not earn this position. You were handed this position by Starfleet. And as far as they will ever see, Ash is a Starfleet person kept there to make sure she stays on the straight and narrow that Starfleet wants. So for her to fake kill Ash because he killed their child, he killed the child that she had with Volk, basically says, I am giving my all to you guys from now on. If she was in love with any other Klingon and had a child by any other Klingon, she would never have to choose, ever. She wouldn't have had to choose. But because of this specific scenario that she was in, she couldn't have both. Okay. She could not have both.
Okay, so I'm going to change my anger. I'm now angry at Starfleet for giving Georgiou this power because Georgiou just needs to be sent back over to the Terran universe. She should not be part of Section 31 Black Ops, and because Georgiou has no scruples, ethics, and does so like we need someone like Captain Pike to help people make decisions, not Georgiou. Okay, so I changed. Thank you.
As you just mentioned, now Georgiou, she's a part of Section 31, like the Black Ops group of Starfleet, and she's on the ship, and she loves it because she gets to basically do what she gets to do, underhanded, dark things. She gets to kill people for fun, and granted, it's for the betterment of Starfleet, but in her mind, she just gets to kill people. So this episode was the beginning of, I think, fun. And when I say fun, it's going to be fun to watch now. Again, I think the next couple of episodes, hopefully, will get the ball rolling. We'll see more action. And it's not so much of explaining, of getting us to where we need to go so that way we can have the action. What are your final thoughts on this episode?
I saw a lot of maternal connections and it was touching to me. And I believe the first episode in the second season is called Brother. And I think that this episode should be called Mother because there were lots of maternal connections from Amanda, Laurel, even Georgiou made a joke when Ash was holding the baby. Ash seemed a little more maternal than I'd ever seen him before with the child. And then Tilley was reflecting upon her time with her mother. So it was nice to see that aspect, which we don't typically see in Star Trek episodes, and really a mother's fight in Amanda's case for her son. Yeah, so that's my final thoughts. What about you?
I loved this episode. Again, I loved it for all the bad things that it had inside of it, because I feel like we're finally, hopefully, setting up the storylines that don't completely, hopefully, revolve around Michael. I do love Michael. Don't get me wrong, people, but I don't like when the show is wrapped around one character forever, because eventually there's only so much that one character can go through that's believable. I like that Georgiou mentioned that she had a kid. And I wonder what's happened to that kid. And I wonder if she have a kid in this universe. And then that opens up a whole bunch of doors. But yeah, so we have a whole season to unravel and to figure out what's going on. So Actually, I agree with you. I do think that this should have been called Mother. There was a lot of mother aspects in this episode. So yeah, I agree. This episode should have been called Mother. But yeah, I like the episode and I cannot wait to see the next one. And I'll be watching the next one the day before we record. So it's fresh in my head. So if that is everything, thank you for listening. And please don't hesitate to subscribe. Talk to you later. And as always, live long and prosper.